Hey gang, what is going on? Keith, Ryan, Juan, we are here back with the Superstar Spotlight. The very first one we did happened all the way back in our episode 100 week special extravaganza where we talked about Randy Orton. We got your feedback. You wanted us to talk about the Big Red Monster. So this episode, it's gotta be about Kane. It's gotta be Kane right here.
It's gotta be Kane. My good God Almighty, it's gotta be Kane.
Yes, sir. So we are here to talk about the Big Red Monster. It is a two-part series. Make sure to check out the description section as we have a companion playlist. So while you're listening to us, you can have that playing. It's a couple of YouTube videos talking about Kane's career. You get to see some matches, storylines that we're going to be talking about right here. So with that being said, guys, you ready? Kane, two-parter?
Let's
do it. Okay, so of course, before there was Kane, there was the Undertaker. Quick side note, Kane, the Undertaker, was originally the first name for the Undertaker. So that's where the name Kane came from. There's actually one match where he's built up. It's not on a Raw or something like that. It was like a smaller show where they called him Kane the Undertaker. So that was the original name. Now,
that's interesting. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, little tidbit. So fast forward to an infamous Hell in a Cell match. There was a rumor that somebody was going to come out. You know, somebody's brother.
Well, even let's take a step back because this is a debut that I vividly remember from back in the day. I was watching the whole Attitude Era, and vividly remember this one Raw where it felt like the entire episode was really Paul Bearer talking like, "Oh, Undertaker, you killed your brother." And they spent this whole thing about Kane, his brother, actually being alive, even though the Undertaker thought he was dead all these years. And in my opinion, this is one of the best lead-ups to a debut ever, because at the time the Undertaker was this scary badass, nobody could mess with the Undertaker. But the second that Paul Bearer said Kane is alive, the Undertaker looked legitimately spooked. So you were, at least I as a kid was left wondering wow, if the Undertaker's afraid of Kane, how badass must Kane be? And then then leads up to the Hell in a Cell. So you can continue doing what you were doing.
Of course. And quick question to you, Ryan. Were you around watching while this happened? I know you started watching wrestling after. So did you get a chance to at least go back in time?
I didn't see that episode of Raw, but of course...
have you gone back, though, and seen, that thing happen? Not live, of course.
I've seen Kane's debut, but I didn't see much of, the previous build-up. Of course, just being a kid during that time and, wrestling was super popular, I always remember hearing about the Kane storyline and him, burning his brother and all that. So a lot of that, you just kind of absorbed.
I highly recommend going back and watching that whole thing.
There's a lot of Attitude Era stuff that I kind of have to watch for myself, aside from just kind of the highlight videos that WWE shows now and again. But I was at least familiar with, some of the build up to it.
So getting to the Hell in a Cell match, lights go out, we get some pyro, and of course, we get the infamous
famous
quote
line, "It's gotta be Kane."
That's gotta be Kane. Insert low budget JR made its way to the Superstar Spotlight. So we get Kane, masked man, of course. Undertaker, you can see his face. Kane is very different. Full body suit. We got the mask, long hair. You can't really see his facial expression. Comes out, he breaks the cell gate. All of these crazy things happen. What is your first impression? And in your case, Ryan, when you went back and then saw this debut of the Big Red Machine?
It was a really cool debut to just show up and just the presence, and the fire and everything. And this guy looked just as badass as the Undertaker, which is not an easy thing to do. I
would say more badass even.
The original costume design was very well done, and that mask and everything.
And Kane was jacked back in the day. As a human being, he was much bigger than the Undertaker at that point. But yes, I think the word that you said there, presence, describes it perfectly, because he debuted in the inaugural Hell in a Cell match. So they spent all of these weeks building up the cell, which I think inherently helped Kane's debut to make him look more like a monster, because he took the door of this demonic structure and then just ripped it clean off like it was nothing. So like he just came in as this powerhouse, laid the Undertaker out with his own move. They never established that Kane would do the tombstone or anything like that. So comes in, tombstones Undertaker, leave. He was like the Brock Lesnar before there was Brock Lesnar. Arrive, tombstone, leave.
So now Kane is part of the roster. He proceeded to then feud with his brother for a little while. And then it was interesting because up until this point, of course, we've had odd characters in wrestling, but here we have an equivalent, or at this point in time, maybe a superior being to Undertaker, because of course he was a little bit afraid of Kane. So did you guys like the fact that, WWE had not just the dead man, this outrageous character when you just write him on paper, but then we also have Kane also being involved in the mix?
I thought it was cool because they really, really played up that whole supernatural thing and made it feel more like a TV show. Like there's that segment where the Undertaker or Kane strikes a cameraman down with lightning and he's on fire rolling around. Just, they really, really went hard with that whole thing. But once again, to make Kane like so strong when he first started, during their first match, which was at WrestleMania, it took The Undertaker's 3 tombstones to beat Kane. Name somebody else that they've done that with. Since then, it just hasn't happened. But it was just so good. They did so good with Kane at the start.
Well, one of the other great things about Kane was just he had something in his build-up that, before his debut that other wrestlers, you don't really see them get today. And that's kind of like a pre-written history, a pre-written build-up, like his storyline in relation to The Undertaker. So, like, you already kind of knew these interesting things about him, knew, that, his history with The Undertaker before you even saw him. And something that, you wish you'd see more in like these supernatural gimmicks or any gimmick, like someone like Bray Wyatt could have really afforded to have, a history like that with his buildup, because we don't really know anything about him besides what he's done, in WWE itself. And just kind of adding a little more flavor, a little bit more of the backstory really kind of fleshes out a character.
And it's interesting now that I'm thinking about it. The inaugural Kane versus Undertaker feud is one of the best examples of how good it can be when wrestling doesn't just give you the payoff right away. Because before that match, like from Hell in a Cell to WrestleMania, Undertaker refused to fight Kane. Like he would just lay down and like not even strike back at his brother. They let that build for so long and the payoff was so good. It was awesome. They did a real good job with that first feud.
And it's funny because, of course, we're talking about Kane, this huge build-up, like, holy crap, we have an equivalent to The Undertaker. One of the things that, of course, we do here in the Spotlight is that we look back and then see kind of funny details. Like, right now, you think logically, wow, this guy had, like, so many title reigns, like, holy crap, lengthy, he took over the world. But then when you look back in history, he was technically a WWF champion and technically even got a picture.
Man, did they ride that technicality out.
Yeah. So basically, he became champion and then proceeded to lose it in around 24 hours later. Mm-hmm. And what was one of the most disappointing things, and it wasn't until, recent history that he got a world championship run and ECW championship run that we'll get to in the second part here. So I want to talk to you guys about that. What's your take on the fact that despite everything that we've talked about and are definitely going to get to, Kane was never the top guy?
Yeah, I mean, he's always kind of just floated in that main event or upper mid card kind of spot. And I mean, they did give him the title for a night. He had the feud with Austin. I'm not 100% sure why they did that. I think there was some
what happened was I actually remember this. So it was the main event to a pay-per-view was it was the first ever first blood match between Kane and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And because Kane was wearing the mask, you had no idea if Kane could bleed or not. So, like, long story short, Austin ended up bleeding, lost the title, and then they gave it back to Austin the next night. So that's why Kane was champion for a night. It was one of those, like, Vince McMahon stacking the odds against Stone Cold as much as possible.
Now, that is a piece of history that happened. And then this is going to be a recurring theme, and I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Kane has always had these spin-off storylines, I guess you can say, or just odd pairings, many of them, some which worked. But then after all this, DX was a thing, and in this sidetrack to DX, Kane and xPac were actually a tag team, to the point where they had their own entrance. It was a little weird. I don't remember all of it. I just remember thinking, why? Kane should be over there, yet he's with xPac, who many people recognize as the third wheel of DX. So in your case, Keith, as somebody that watched all of this as it happened, did it shock you?
It was from going to this big thing with the Undertaker, and this was after he was like a corporate monster too. Like, I think it was like some explanation that Paul Bearer struck some deal with Vince or something like that. But this was really the first of many, many, many examples in his career when they really begun to humanize Kane. Like, he was still a monster for the most part. He was still this big, intimidating dude that would just wreck shop in the ring, and he didn't even like have a voice at that point. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a long time where Kane would like put a voice box and it would be like, this is what I'm doing in the ring, I'm Kane style thing. So
I'm awesome.
But yeah, he would like, there was this weird feud between, it ended up with him and xPac feuding for Tori, because everybody remembers her from Degeneration X.
Not Tori Wilson for people, Tori. If you're asking yourself who's Tori,
you're not the only one.
Yeah.
But no, it was weird. It was a good little, it seemed like a good little offshoot, but it felt like that's when they started going in the wrong direction with Kane and moving away from the monster itself.
Now, in your case, Ryan, as somebody that didn't watch that as it happened, what was your take on even acknowledging or knowing that Kane at some point was in this odd pairing with xPac?
It doesn't surprise me with, the history past it. At the time, I'm sure it would have been a little bit more surprising because, Kane, he's this established monster. But knowing what we know now from his full history,
I think that was his
very
first
much
face
a theme
run as well. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Yeah, there's just very much a theme in Kane's career of, we got to make him the monster. Now we got to pull him back and make him a comedy character. Now we got to make him a monster again. So I think this might have been that inaugural, let's kind of make him a little bit less serious.
And I guess that's what also happens when you write out at the top from the very beginning. We talked about that in previous videos. But then, he's sort of in the roster technically. The Undertaker fades away, and then we always get rumors. Oh, the Undertaker's coming back with a different kind of character and all these things. Limp Bizkit gets involved. I mean that was an awesome track, which when you look back, they sadly have to replace most of it. But we proceeded to get the Brothers of Destruction. So Kane and the Undertaker, who hated each other at the beginning, the brothers got along, people, and then they became a family and wreaked havoc everywhere. And I think that this is when Kane's career definitely got back on the right track. He was seen as a legitimate threat again, and it was interesting because then they were a tag team champions, and it's like Kane and the Undertaker shouldn't they be the champions?
Like, who should stop them?
Yeah,
that
exactly.
should be absolutely unstoppable.
So what you guys think about the fact that we ended up getting that pairing?
I always look back at the Brothers of Destruction as bittersweet. I know at the time I wasn't a big fan of them because, we got Kane and The Undertaker, like this unstoppable force, but it wasn't the Kane and Undertaker I would have liked to see because, like you mentioned, at the time we had the American badass Undertaker, like motorcycle. It wasn't the Prince of Darkness, evil Undertaker, so it felt a little weird like that, but it definitely helped build Kane up back as this monster, even though it kind of felt like he was a side piece to The Undertaker at that point. But so it was awesome, but I think it was more awesome for how like cool it is that The Undertaker and Kane were teaming together.
Yeah, I loved this tag team, and like Keith said, it's just a shame we didn't really get like the old Undertaker with this Kane, because this was actually Kane in this time was possibly my favorite time with Kane, when also when he was kind of involved with the hardcore title and stuff, and he was just gas to the gills, I guess, as Steve Austin would say. He was just huge, and he had like the cut sleeve outfit going on.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a makeover.
He had like the old school mask with like the cut sleeve outfit, and the dude he looked like a monster. And like, how do you stop Kane and the Undertaker as a tag team? So it was really cool that they kind of got that run.
Plus, they had the coolest entrance of all time, where Kane would come out, do his entrance, and he would do the boom in the ring, and then Limp Bizkit would play, and the Undertaker would come out. It was really cool.
And
I remember I got so excited when the games had it.
It was awesome, and then Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
But hey, during that time, we all loved Limp Bizkit. Let's be real here.
Exactly. You know, we got to be time sensitive. Now, maybe people look at it differently, but back then, especially when that was actually part of one of the games, I remember like, holy crap, the video games, they got that entrance combination that who doesn't love that? But
so go back, listen to Chocolate Starfish Hot Dog Flavored Water, and
as a kid, I loved it, man.
Yeah, same here.
I'm admitting that
That's
willingly.
the name of that Limp Bizkit CD.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't even know the name of the disc. So I learned something today. Yeah. To me, just a quick comment here. It was always interesting to me how Kane, even though he had this makeover, he was still kind of like the debut Kane. You know, he was still a masked man. He didn't have this severe makeover, but then the Undertaker is like the American badass. It's kind of like, wait, one of these things sort of moved, and then the other one's like in the past. Okay, we'll take it. Kind of cool, I guess. But then, after a while, Kane faces out once the Brothers of Destruction end. And right at the end, I'm just going to point out, because people seem to forget, a lot of people say, when he had the half mask, Kane started to become a joke character. There's an infamous backstage segment between Hulk Hogan, The Rock, and Kane, where Kane talks about the Canaanites and does all that. And that was when he was still full mask, and some people forget that. But then he comes back. Of course, there's the rumor, is he going to come back maskless, kind of like the Undertaker American Badass? No, he comes back with half a mask, different look. I think a lot of people dug it. New custom theme music, sort of based on his past one. And then he was a little smaller. So I guess there were a lot of things that people looking back see this as the lesser Kane. So I won't actually get to that conversation. Started with you, Ryan.
Kane Rooney.
I think we're good.
Yep, Kane-a-Rooney. A Kane-a-Rooney happened, right? We all know Booker T with the spin-a-Rooney. Kane did the Kane-a-Rooney, and that is where that Kane died.
Yeah. The more I'm realizing it is that throughout his career, Kane just never should have been a face. Because every single time we're talking about where Kane lost relevancy, he was a good guy. Maybe that's where the problem came from.
I think there is a time in somewhat recent history where face Kane was good.
Okay.
But that is a part 2 affair.
Yeah.
Yes, all right. A good point.
Let's be honest here, and I don't think we can figure out the answer for this, but I think Kane was more of a temporary character than a permanent one. They figured people kind of like the mask and the mask sells, so we'll keep him around. But he definitely seemed like he was there to feud with The Undertaker. And then he's still there to this day.
Well, I mean, really, this was one of the first times where Kane really fell down the card. Like, even like during the DX stuff, he still had a prominent role, but he went from, like, even with the Brothers of Destruction, their big feud was against like Triple H and Stone Cold after a while. So then you get this Kane that's feuding with, like, I don't even know, the weird Kane-a-Rooney thing, Booker T, and just the people that felt a little lower on the card. So Kane started to slump during this time, and it was not good.
So I want to bring up tag teams, because in this point he was involved in some questionable storylines. I don't know should we bring up the Katie Vick thing now? I mean, when do you guys want to bring that up?
I'm going to say we save that.
I just wanted to bring that to the forum here. No, it's a deep topic. Yeah,
that's something.
Plus, we also have another video that you can check out on the channel, by the way, where we talk about the worst wrestling storylines happening. We have a part 1 of that going on, and we actually talk about that. So if you want to hear us to talk about Katie Vick, go over there. Last thing I want to bring up here is Kane and the Hurricane, because, of course, not only does the name rhyme, I actually thought the tag team was kind of good. I mean, it definitely made Kane become way too much of a human at this point. I think people just completely forgot about just the fact that he's a huge guy. He was just the dude in the mask with the Hurricane. Did you guys enjoy that tag team, or at least that point in time with Kane?
I didn't enjoy it for the reason you just said, where at that point he was a human. They've lost everything they built up with Kane. But I did enjoy it because he had one of the performances of his career in that TLC match on Raw. Where that was a hell of a showing, Kane.
I remember when they did the 2 TV TLC matches, they were both excellent. The Raw and the SmackDown one, they were obviously involved with the Raw one, and it was phenomenal. Kane, aside from Brothers of Destruction, is always finding himself in the oddball, the odd couple tag teams.
You're right. Yeah.
That's just kind of been his thing. So it only made sense that, of course, Kane, it's like Kane and a smaller guy every time, except for Brothers of Destruction. That was his one time to have a non-odd couple tag team.
Well, there was Kane and the Big Show.
Oh, that is right. That is right.
So it's either I could go without that team, but yeah.
It shows how memorable it was.
But yeah, I mean, like, Kane is always good at like, he can just kind of play his role and have the other guy be the funny guy, and they'll always have that kind of good dynamic.
Yeah.
So I guess to sort of close this one out, up until this point, Kane half mask. He is about to be unmasked. We will get to that in part 2. What would you say was his defining moment, or your favorite Kane moment up to this point?
It sounds really morbid when I say it out loud, but honestly, his debut was the best Kane moment up to this point. There is better ones that are coming, but they really had lightning in a bottle with Kane when he first debuted, and they kept it going for a very long time. I think that Kane's first run and his feud with The Undertaker is some of his best work throughout his whole career. But yeah, no, that was it was phenomenal.
Yeah, running through everything that we just went through in this part, I don't think anything can really top that initial debut and storyline with The Undertaker. There were some good moments in there. I did enjoy his WrestleMania 17 hardcore match and things like that. But you can't really top that initial storyline.
Almost ruined the show. Fun little story.
Yeah. The greatest WrestleMania almost never happened. And for me, I hate to sound redundant, but yeah, I think that first year was just so perfect. This huge guy comes in, dominates The Undertaker, and you're thinking to yourself, like, he's going to change the landscape of WWE. Now, of course, maybe that wasn't the case because of everything we've talked about, but Kane, part 1, half mask. Definitely stay tuned to part 2, where we'll talk about Kane becoming unmasked. We'll talk about the chokeslam, the tombstone, the Dad Man returning to WrestleMania 20, corporate Kane. I know that's going to be an interesting conversation. So definitely leave a comment with your favorite Kane moment up to this point. If there's anything that you think we missed out, because of course it's a huge career to summarize in a 30-minute portion. So we sort of pick out specific moments that give us an indication of where his character was going. So make sure to subscribe to the channel. Check out the podcast available every single Tuesday night. We talk about Raw, pay-per-view predictions, a ton of stuff happening. And if you want to have a little bit of fun, check out Fight Night, which is our WWE 2K Fantasy League happening right here on the channel also. And recommend us any future spotlights that you would love to see right here. So until next time, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned to part 2 right here on Byte That.